Karen vandalized. My 13 mm Rolls Royce. The secret camera destroyed her reputation. Part 1. Chapter 1. A neighborhood built on appearances. My name is Nathan Cole, and I live in one of those neighborhoods that looks perfect on a postcard. Brick-paved driveways, manicured lawns, white picket fences, a place where every dog has a name, and every child rides a bike until the streetlights come on. At least that's how it appears from the outside. Beneath the surface, though, Willow Crest was a pressure cooker of quiet competition and polished resentment. I wasn't from old money. I wasn't a trust fund baby. I was just a guy who got lucky, a startup founder who cashed out before 35 and decided to live quietly out of the city. Noise away from the flashing lights and champagne circuits. My one indulgence was parked discreetly in my garage, a 2017 Rolls-Royce Sweptail, a masterpiece. One of one worth around $13 million. I never showed it off. Never took it to car shows, never revved the engine just to flex. To me, it was more than a car. It was a reminder of where I came from, how far I'd fought to get here. Every inch of that car represented late nights failures and risking everything when no one believed I could. Most neighbors didn't know about it. I kept my garage closed, my lifestyle modest. I was that quiet guy at the end of the cul-de-sac, and I liked it that way, at least until she moved in, Karen Whitmore. Blonde, surgically youthful for someone in her late 50s, always in crisp pastel suits and oversized sunglasses, even on cloudy days. The kind of woman who had mastered the art of the backhanded compliment and who treated gossip like a professional sport. To Karen, wealth wasn't about hard work or luck, it was a birthright, and anyone who didn't fit her cookie-cutter mold of deserving was suspect. The first time we met, she gave me a once-over, her eyes lingering not on my face but on my boots and plain shirt. "You must be the landscaper," she said sweetly. When I corrected her, "No, I live here," she blinked in surprise as if I'd spoken in a foreign language. Then she smiled tight and thin, and I knew right then Karen had judged me, and in her mind I had already failed. I brushed it off at first. Neighborhood politics weren't my interest. I stayed polite, kept to myself. But Karen made it her mission to figure me out, and she didn't like what she found. Chapter 2. First Clashes and Silent Judgments. It started small. Karen began dropping by when I was doing yard work, commenting loudly on the unusual trucks parked outside my contractors, hinting that some of us take pride in appearances. At HOA meetings, she'd passive-aggressively bring up certain residents who flaunt unusual wealth in ways that lower property values. No names, of course, just enough poison to let it spread. I heard the rumors swirling before they even reached my ears. Nathan must be laundering money. Nathan must have some shady business. No one normal could afford a place like this and be so private. I could feel the walls closing in. I wasn't angry, not yet. Mostly I was disappointed. Disappointed that after working so hard to build something beautiful, I was being reduced to whispered suspicion and backyard speculation. I didn't flaunt my car. I didn't brag about my portfolio. I just lived. But for people like Karen, quiet success was a threat, a mirror reflecting everything she wasn't, but wanted desperately to be. And then the day came when I accidentally cracked the door open for her hate to take a tangible form. Chapter 3. The Day of Reckless Rage. It was a Saturday. The kind of spring day you dream about during long gray winters. Blue skies, warm sun, a gentle breeze carrying the scent of fresh-cut grass. I decided to do a deep clean of my garage. Organized tools sweep out cobwebs. Nothing fancy. At some point, I opened the main door wide to air the place out. The Sweptail gleaming under its cover caught a few curious eyes from passing joggers and dog walkers. I didn't think much of it. It was, after all, my property. Apparently, Karen thought otherwise. She must have seen the glint of chrome and the silhouette beneath the canvas. To someone like her, who measured worth by appearances, it must have felt like a slap in the face. I didn't see her approach. I was inside scrubbing oil stains off the floor. But when I heard a strange metallic clink and the faint creak of plastic snapping, I rushed outside just in time to catch a glimpse of Karen's pastel pink sweater disappearing around the corner of my driveway. And there on the ground, lying like a wounded bird, was my Rolls-Royce's rear license plate. Screws bent, frame cracked. It took me a second to process. No, she didn't, but she had. My first instinct was rage. My blood-boiled fists clenched, heart hammering in my chest. How dare she? Yet something stopped me from charging after her. A small, almost invisible dot above the garage entrance caught my eye. The miniature security camera I'd installed 2 months ago after a minor break-in down the street. A hidden witness, a silent, unbiased observer, and it had caught everything. Chapter 4. The Shocking Evidence. That night, after my breathing slowed and logic crept back into my mind, I reviewed the footage. It was all there: Karen marching across the street with stiff, righteous purpose. Karen circling my garage like a vulture. Karen reaching under the cover, fiddling with the plate, yanking it off in a fit of frustration. Karen cradling the plate awkwardly like a stolen trophy before darting away. I watched it 3 times. Each time the disbelief gave way to cold clarity. This wasn't some accident. This wasn't misunderstanding. This was vandalism, plain and simple, and it was on tape. By morning, the debate raged in my mind. Should I confront her directly? Should I call the police? Should I pretend it never happened? But every time I pictured the way she smirked at me across the HOA meetings, every time I thought about how she twisted neighbors' minds against me without cause, I realized this wasn't just about a plate. This was about dignity, about respect. Karen needed to be held accountable, not by revenge, but by the truth. Chapter 5. Deciding to expose the truth. I didn't storm over. I didn't yell or threaten lawsuits. Instead, I made a few quiet phone calls. First to my lawyer, then to the HOA board. At the next community meeting, I requested a slot on the agenda under neighborhood security concerns. When the evening arrived, neighbors shuffled into the clubhouse, plastic chairs squeaking on the floor, a cooler of lukewarm sodas by the door. Karen was there too, perched in the front row, like a queen on a makeshift throne, arms folded, a smug smile on her face. Perfect. When my turn came, I calmly connected my laptop to the projector. The screen flickered to life, and there in front of the entire neighborhood, Karen's crimes played out in crisp, damning high definition. Gasps, whispers, a few choked laughs. Karen's face drained of color, then flushed an angry crimson. "This is slander," she screeched, rising to her feet. "No," I said quietly. "This is a camera feed from my private property showing criminal vandalism." The room froze. For the first time since she moved in, Karen Whitmore found herself powerless, and this was only the beginning. Part 2, Chapter 6. The fallout begins. The video spread like wildfire. By the next morning, it wasn't just the HOA who had seen it. Someone had recorded the clip off the projector with their phone and posted it on the Willowcrest neighborhood app. From there, it leapt to local Facebook groups, then TikTok, then Instagram. Karen caught vandalizing neighbor's Rolls-Royce. Entitled "HOA Member Destroys Property and Gets Exposed. Willowcrest Drama Queen. Karen Takes a Fall." The headlines were brutal. Neighbors who once gossiped about me now openly whispered about her. The looks that used to land on my back like daggers now turned sharply toward her, cutting deep without a word spoken. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The truth was doing the work for me. Karen, on the other hand, imploded. At first, she tried to deny it, claimed the footage was doctored, said it was out of context, insisted she had tripped and accidentally grabbed the plate to steady herself. No one bought it. Even her few remaining friends, the so-called ladies of the lane, started distancing themselves. By the end of the week, Karen wasn't just the neighborhood villain. She was a viral meme, and things were only getting started. Chapter 7. Karen's Desperate Counterattack. When a narcissist feels cornered, they lash out. Karen didn't apologize. She didn't take responsibility. Instead, she doubled down. She filed a formal complaint with the HOA against me, alleging that my security camera was an invasion of privacy and a violation of community trust. Yes, you read that right. The woman who vandalized a 13mm vehicle had the audacity to accuse me of wrongdoing for having the foresight to protect my own property. The complaint demanded that I remove all surveillance devices immediately and issue a public apology for violating neighborhood values. It was laughable, but also dangerous. The HOA board, under pressure from both sides, called an emergency meeting to review the concerns. Karen arrived in full battle gear, tailored suit, legal-looking documents, a smug little smirk plastered across her face. Me, I brought facts, footage, timestamps, state property laws, an official letter from my attorney affirming my right to protect my home. When I presented them calmly, point by point, the room shifted. People realized Karen wasn't just foolish. She was malicious. It wasn't even a contest. The HOA voted unanimously to reject her complaint, but Karen wasn't finished. She threatened to sue. She threatened to expose me for who I really was. She screamed at the HOA president in the parking lot, calling him a spineless traitor. Someone caught it on camera. It went viral again. Chapter 8, The Court of Public Opinion. You can fight in court, you can fight in meetings. But once the court of public opinion turns against you, it's over. Karen found that out the hard way. Within days, a local news station picked up the story. Wealthy homeowner victim of vandalism by his own neighbor. They showed clips of the security footage. They interviewed nearby residents. They ran a side-by-side comparison of the Rolls-Royce swept-tail and Karen's battered Lexus SUV. The contrast was brutal. Suddenly, Karen wasn't just a neighborhood menace. She was a public spectacle. People began driving through Willow Crest just to snap photos of the Karen house. Someone spray-painted "entitled" on her driveway one night. Teenagers egged her mailbox. A giant inflatable Rolls-Royce showed up on her front lawn, a prank by some anonymous Good Samaritan. Karen called the police, repeatedly sobbing about harassment. But karma, as they say, had come to collect. Meanwhile, my days grew strangely peaceful. Neighbors who once ignored me now waved and smiled. Some even apologized. It was bittersweet. The damage Karen had done to my reputation would take time to heal. But now her mask was shattered, and there was no repairing it. Chapter 9, An Unexpected Visitor. One evening, about 3 weeks after the initial explosion, I heard a knock on my door. It wasn't angry. It wasn't insistent, just hesitant. I opened it to find Karen standing there. But she wasn't the Karen I was used to. Her hair was disheveled. No makeup, red-rimmed eyes, shoulders hunched. She clutched something in both hands, a small wooden box and a crumpled letter. She started, then faltered. I came to apologize. I said nothing, just waited. Karen thrust the box toward me, almost like she couldn't bear to hold it another second. Inside was a polished silver plate with an engraving to Nathan Cole. A reminder that honor outlives scandal, and the letter a full confession. Karen admitted she had judged me unfairly from the moment we met. Admitted she felt inferior, not because of my wealth, but because of my dignity. Admitted she lashed out because hurting me made her feel less small, if only for a moment. And most shocking of all, she didn't ask for forgiveness. She simply wanted me to know she saw herself clearly now. For the first time in her life, "I'll be moving away," she said quietly. "I don't deserve to stay here." For a long moment, we just stood there, two broken pieces of a neighborhood that had built itself on appearances, finally quietly telling the truth. I accepted the box. Nodded once. Karen turned and walked away. No victory dance, no gloating. Just a profound, aching sadness, and perhaps the first real step towards something better. Chapter 10, Honor, Gratitude, and Moving Forward. Weeks later, life settled into a new rhythm. Karen's house went up for sale. New families moved into Willow Crest, younger, more open-hearted. The neighborhood, once ruled by silent judgment, began to change. Block parties became more inclusive. Conversations less about status and more about stories, families' journeys. As for me, I still kept my garage closed most days, still lived quietly. But when someone asked about the car, I didn't hide it anymore. I told them the truth, how it wasn't about showing off, but about remembering the fight to get here, about honoring the sacrifices, the late nights, the relentless hope. And every so often, when the sun hit just right and the sky was clear, I'd open the garage door, let the light fall on that beautiful, ridiculous machine. A reminder that dignity, kindness, and perseverance outshine any rumor, any scandal, any storm, and always will. Part 3. Chapter 11. Rumors, Rage, and a Lawsuit Threat. Even after Karen's public meltdown, I thought maybe foolishly that things would quiet down. But shame is a powerful poison. Instead of retreating with grace, Karen found a lawyer, or at least someone who was willing to take her money. A thick envelope showed up on my doorstep one humid afternoon, a cease and desist letter, accusing me of defamation of character and emotional distress. It was laughable and deeply sad. The evidence was clear, the footage was indisputable, and the public record now reflected her own actions, not any narrative I'd crafted. Still, my attorney advised me to tread carefully. Karen could drag this through court just to cause more pain, not because she would win, but because some people would rather torch everything than admit they were wrong. I realized something standing there on my porch, clutching that ridiculous envelope. This wasn't just about a car. It was about a battle of values, dignity versus pride, integrity versus ego. And I wasn't going to lose. Chapter 12. The Town Hall Explosion. The HOA called a town hall to address the escalating tensions. The clubhouse was packed. People brought popcorn. Literally, Karen showed up late wearing a power suit and dark sunglasses flanked by her lawyer, a skinny, twitchy man who looked like he hadn't won a case in years. I sat quietly in the back saying nothing, just listening. Karen's lawyer spoke first, painting her as the victim of a calculated smear campaign designed to erode her standing in the community. There were murmurs in the crowd, not supportive ones. Then the HOA president stood up, cleared his throat, and dropped the bombshell. "We have completed our review," he said calmly, "and we filed a formal police report regarding the vandalism of Mr. Cole's property." You could hear a pin drop, Karen's face twisted into a mask of horror and rage. Her lawyer looked like he wanted to melt into the floor. "This is outrageous," she shrieked. "You're all turning against me because he's rich." No one responded, not because they were afraid, but because the truth was heavier than any scream. Karen stormed out, knocking over a chair in her wake. The door slammed behind her like the final gavel at a trial she had already lost. Chapter 13. The Charges Land. A week later, an unmarked police cruiser pulled up outside Karen's house. She didn't resist, didn't scream, just walked out with her head down, sunglasses on, into the back of the car. The charges: criminal mischief, destruction of private property, attempted intimidation. She would avoid jail time. First offenses and privilege worked in her favor there. But she wouldn't walk away. Clean fines, community service, mandatory anger management classes. But worst of all, the death of her reputation. Once a queen bee, now in exile. Once a gatekeeper, now a cautionary tale. I didn't feel triumphant, I felt relieved. Justice, quiet and steady, had done its work. Without screaming, without violence. Just truth and consequences. Chapter 14. Letters and Lessons. After the charges, something unexpected began happening. Neighbors started leaving notes in my mailbox, handwritten ones. "We're sorry for judging you. Thank you for standing up with dignity. You reminded us what real respect looks like." Small gestures, but they meant everything. I wasn't naive. I knew some people would still whisper behind closed doors. Old habits die hard. But now the loudest voices in Willowcrest weren't the ones tearing others down. They were the ones lifting each other up. And it had nothing to do with wealth. It had everything to do with character. As for Karen, she sold her house at a loss and left town under a cloud of infamy. Some said she moved to Florida. Others said she changed her name. I didn't care. Not out of cruelty, but because I had bigger things to focus on. Life hope. The kind of future you can only build when you're not chained to bitterness. Chapter 15. The Open Road. One golden evening, long after the drama had faded into a memory, I rolled the swept tail out of the garage. No cover, no secrecy. Just the car and me, and the wide open street stretching into a sunset burning orange and red across the sky. I drove slowly at first, then a little faster, feeling the wind rush through the open windows, the purr of the engine vibrating through the leather seats. Freedom, forgiveness. Not for Karen, she had her own road to walk. But for myself, I wasn't just a man protecting a car. I was a man protecting the right to be proud of where he came from, without shame, without apology. And as I disappeared into the horizon, neighbors waved from their porches. Kids cheered from sidewalks, and the last shadows of judgment melted away behind me. Honor doesn't need a spotlight. It shines all on its own. Part 4. Chapter 16. A New Dawn in Willowcrest. After Karen left, something shifted in Willowcrest. The air felt lighter, the conversations warmer. The invisible walls that once kept people apart began to crumble. Neighbors who had never spoken beyond a stiff nod at the mailbox started exchanging real greetings. Block parties became genuine celebrations, not curated exhibitions of status. It wasn't perfect, no community ever is, but for the first time in years, Willowcrest felt like a neighborhood again, not a battleground. Ironically, Karen's downfall had given the rest of us permission to be human, and I found myself smiling more often than I used to. Not because everything was perfect, but because hope had taken root. Chapter 17. Unexpected Friendships. One afternoon as I polished the swept tail, a small shadow fell across the driveway. I looked up to find Jeremy, a shy 12-year-old kid from down the street, standing there, clutching a toy car. "Is that a real Rolls-Royce?" he asked wide-eyed. I laughed and knelt down beside him. "Yeah, buddy, it is." He hesitated. Can I see inside?" Without thinking twice, I opened the door and waved him in. His face lit up like it was Christmas morning. Soon more kids drifted over, then their parents. Not gawking, not jealous, just curious, appreciative, sharing a moment, and that's how it started. Once a month, I hosted a small, open garage day for the neighborhood. Kids could sit in the car. Parents could swap stories over lemonade. It wasn't about showing off. It was about sharing joy. Something Karen had never understood. True wealth isn't what you keep, it's what you give. Chapter 18. The Honor Ride. About 6 months later, the town hosted a charity event honoring first responders. Firefighters, police officers, paramedics. Someone on the planning committee probably mischievously suggested I bring out the swept tail for the parade. At first I hesitated. I didn't want the focus to be on a car, but after some persuasion, I agreed on one condition. Veterans and first responders would ride with me. The day of the event, the sun blazed high overhead. The street was lined with cheering families, waving flags. I pulled the rolls into position. An elderly veteran, Mr. Alvarez, who once stormed Normandy Beach, climbed into the passenger seat with a shaky but proud smile. And as we cruised slowly down Main Street, with the roar of applause in our ears, I realized something. The Rolls-Royce wasn't just a symbol of hard work. It had become a vehicle for honor, for gratitude, for memory. Exactly what it was always meant to be. Chapter 19. A Letter from Far Away. One chilly autumn morning, I found a letter tucked into my mailbox. No return address, inside a single sheet of paper. Handwritten. Careful, hesitant. It was from Karen. "Nathan, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I owe you this. I've spent the past months in therapy working on myself, facing things I never wanted to admit. You didn't just expose my actions, you forced me to confront my emptiness. I am sorry. Truly. I hope someday you find it in your heart to forgive me. Not because I deserve it, but because maybe you deserve the peace. Thank you for showing me and the whole neighborhood that real strength is quiet, patient, and kind, Karen." I sat on my porch for a long time staring at the letter. Forgiveness isn't about excusing the past. It's about choosing not to let the past poison the future. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in a small wooden box next to the engraved silver plate Karen had once given me. Not forgotten, not erased, transformed. Chapter 20. The Road Ahead. Life rolled on season after season. New families moved into Willowcrest. The laughter of children filled the streets. The hum of barbecues and backyard guitars replaced the icy tension that had once haunted every HOA meeting. And me, I still kept my swept tail. Still loved it, polished it, honored it. But I also learned to love the ordinary moments more. Sharing coffee with my neighbor, Gus, on the porch. Teaching Jeremy how to change a tire. Listening to the quiet pride in Mr. Alvarez's voice as he talked about his grandchildren. The swept tail had been a dream, realized, but people, connection, kindness, community, they were the true treasures. One evening, I rolled the swept tail down a country road, windows down, breathing in the crisp air. No crowds, no cameras, Just me, the open road, and a quiet promise whispered into the wind. Honor outlives scandal, kindness outlives anger, and love, real love for where you are, and who you fight to become, outlives everything. The sunset blazed ahead, painting the world gold, and I drove forward, not away from the past, but toward the future. The end.